Man.
Micah, get the fuck out!
Whoa.
I don't want to look.
Shell. Look, this is not the time for this.
Get out! Get out!
Welcome back, ghouls, to the Complete Guide to Horror Movies podcast. Today we are discussing what I think is such a trailblazer. It is a masterpiece. It's none of those things. We're talking about Paranormal Activity, the 2009 American supernatural horror film, produced, written, directed, photographed, and edited by Oren Peli. Yes, that's listed on Wikipedia. May as well just have the whole credits be by Oren Peli. Paranormal Activity centers on a young couple who are haunted by a supernatural presence inside their home. They then set up a camera to document what is haunting them. The film uses found footage conventions that were also mirrored in later films of the series. This includes Paranormal Activity 2, 3, 4, Ghost Dimension, the marked ones, the spin-off, which is actually really good. And then the piece of shit that was Next of King, which I'm not surprised that killed the whole franchise. But anyway, we are talking about just the first movie today.
Could, but no.
Okay.
Nice try, though.
I am a big defender of this movie, but after rewatching it, for me, I think I quickly came to realize that the reason why I liked all these Paranormal Activity movies was because it was essentially the event horror movie for the year.
There was some weird shit going on around the house. Chairs was moving, blood was pouring from the sink, trees was giving Clara her comeuppance, and then corpses tried swimming with the foxy. Talk about the blind leading the blind.
After Saw kind of came to an end with Saw 6 in 2009, Saw 3D barely got released in Australia in 2010. It was like Paranormal Activity 1 in 2009, then every other one for another year. And I always remember just having a great time, like watching them with friends and being like, oh, that was so scary, even though it's not scary. But I've had so many friends I went and saw it with who were petrified. And I'm thinking, what is so scary about Paranormal Activity 4? Like, this is the fourth version of the same movie.
Foxy needed to solve this mystery. They're here. Don't go in there! Oh, I told your dumbass not to go in there! Shh!
I'm with you. I've sort of always kind of defended it because I do think it's like a good idea. I think we've mentioned it before, like we've talked about, you know, Blair Witch Project and the found footage and all that kind of thing.
It's all my fault.
But not a lot really took off from that. Like it was like Blair Witch Project was such a big thing, but Paranormal Activity from there, like almost every horror movie for the next 5 years was some version of found footage.
Wow, Lois, you were lucky to have a nanny. My mom just left me with a radio possessed by the former owner of our home. Can I have a snack?
You're sitting where I died.
I didn't watch Paranormal Activity at the movies or anything like that, so I didn't get like the full experience. And I think it was like a year or two after before I watched it, because I'm sure you guys have heard this and probably felt this rewatching the movie. Everyone's issue with it is that it's really boring.
Brace yourself for 86 minutes of a guitar, a door, a fridge, some empty rooms, a ceiling grate, a chandelier, some blinds, an attic door, stairs, 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 Juliet from Lost, and stairs.
I can see if you were to sort of like, I don't know, turn all the lights off and get right into it and try and get in there, it might be a little bit unnerving, but other than sort of some loud noises and things like that, sometimes that low humming that's always present is a little unnerving. But for the most part, even at the time, it wasn't necessarily a new idea.
Very mature.
I actually prefer, believe it or not, some of the sequels. I think it's the second and the fourth were pretty good, because I thought the second one, they at least upped the ante and there was enough to keep you engaged throughout the entire movie.
Get this! Our house was built on an ancient Indian burial ground. They moved the headstones, but they didn't move the bodies!
It's interesting too, because I remember when we first started this podcast series, actually, a lot of episodes we've covered, like the Final Destination series, Scream, Hostel. A lot of those movies, especially when it came to the sequels released after 2009, all the studio heads wanted them to go the found footage path because of how insanely successful Paranormal Activity was. And in all honesty, I'm glad they didn't, because I think Final Destination mixed with found footage just wouldn't feel right. It's just like, oh, okay, let's just slap on a gimmick and call it a day.
Only new life can defeat death.
Right off the bat, I think the biggest issue I had with this movie was trying not to think of how bad this franchise turned into, but by the end of it, like next of kin.
With a premise that they'll milk for at least 5 more movies.
And just how saturated the market just got with the amount of found footage movies that came out. And, the next 5 years after, like everyone and their mother was bringing out, found footage movies of everything. So coming back to it, yeah, I agree with both of you. There's some good parts of it, but it also is quite a bit of a boring movie. And I agree with Coop. A couple of the sequels are better, but yeah, it's sort of like the demise even from number one. It's a bit like Scary Movie when we talked about, 1 and 2, and sort of 3, and then it started to go down. That's sort of the realm of this movie as well.
I feel like there's something in this house.
Like what?
Like I feel hot, clammy, foul-smelling breath on my neck.
Unique called psychic, killed by spirits.
I didn't mind watching it again, and my heart was racing in some of those scenes, as you said, like the low murmur, even just some of the devil noises, and the effects were pretty good. But there's a lot of information in the background, which we'll discuss later, and I wouldn't actually say Paranormal Activity was the return for found footage, which I'll leave for later, because there was another movie, which is one of my favorites, which came out just before Paranormal Activity, even though Paranormal Activity was, I think at a film festival in 2007, but wasn't released till 2009. But yeah, I had a good time watching it.
I'm not interested in that. I just want them to go away.
There's this really great documentary on Paramount Plus, or depending wherever you are in the world, that goes into the behind the scenes of Paranormal Activity and how it went from being just like a simple idea to how they casted Mika and Katie, who use their real names in the movie, versus how it blew up. And I hate those type of documentaries about movies. Like, I don't even watch special features on DVDs, for example, but this was actually really interesting to see just how it progressed through so many barriers and everything. Whereas now that, they released Next of Kin, it's like, how did they fuck that up so bad? But anyway. We'll talk about favorite parts. There are some parts in this movie that, even rewatching it, I still felt a little scared, and I don't know why. Because, yes, this has some jump scares, but it's some really good horror movie scenes. 2, I want to point out the one where Katie just stands up and is just hovering over him, and you fast forward and she's been standing like that for 4 hours or whatever. Yeah. That's creepy because I've actually done that before. Like, I've been sleepwalking, I've stood over, walked into my sister's room and just stood over her, watching her, and she's like, what the fuck? And when she told me in the morning, I didn't believe her. I was like, that's bullshit, I never did that. I'd remember if I got up out of bed, but she had her phone footage on. I'm like, what the fuck? Why did I do that? That's so weird. Anyway, the second one, and this is silly, because this should not be scary at all, but there's a part where it shows them in the bed and the doors open and you see the light turn on in the background. That is freaky to me. I hate that shit because it's like you don't see what's actually coming, but the idea that there's someone else in the house, that freaks me out.
I think the freakiest part for me, because I've had a similar dream where I was kind of imagining that where she gets dragged out of bed by her legs. I had a dream once and it felt so real. It felt like I was sort of getting slightly, almost gently pulled to the bottom of my bed by my feet. And so, yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh God, that just brings me back to that moment and just freaks the hell out of me. As I mentioned before, the low humming, that kind of thing that sort of creates that suspense. is really good.
I really liked the scene where she was standing there and then she's, saying like, it's right here. And then you can see her hair like starting to flutter. And like just that genuine fear in her face, like, it wasn't put on. Like that was really good. That scared the shit out of me. And the sound of just the, like the footsteps coming up the steps, that sort of thing. And then even just, I didn't mind that effect of the powder and actually seeing those footprints. I didn't really see it at first when I was watching it because it was a bit too dark, but when they replayed it, I was like, that's actually kind of good CGI where they want to use for that. And I actually did think the chemistry between Mika and Katie was actually like believable. And reading about it, it did say that a lot of the scenes were improv, which was really cool.
Get over it.
Back in 2009, I was 17, and I remember the ads came up on TV, and my mum really wanted to go. And like at the time, you're 17. I was like, I don't want my mum to come to the cinema. Like, leave me alone. Yeah. And then I was like, all right, you can come with me and my friends. We had such a great time. She kept yelling out, like, check the music room every time Katie would like go downstairs. Like, it's just like, this is my message to all our listeners. Just take your parents to see a horror movie. It is so much fun.
Where are you?
Check the fucking music room.
I just wish it was more entertaining. Like as yourself and Coop said, I don't know how they would make it more entertaining. Coop, you're going to talk about another part that I dislike. I will say, I think the fact that this has like 6 different endings and 4 of them are on the DVD. There's another 2 that were filmed but didn't get released, etc. I don't know why they needed that many endings. I thought the theatrical was actually perfectly fine as it is, but what I dislike actually is the fact that so many people thought that this was real. I'm like, it's clearly a fake movie, but they're like, oh, she's possessed, and at the end she growls at the camera. I'm like, yeah, it's fake. And like, I remember having arguments with people in high school about this, which was my first mistake. And they're like, it's real. My cousin told me that the videotapes are real and they're only published because the family got paid. I'm like, they're actors.
I will touch on the what we've already mentioned, the Big Bird footprints. I don't know. I remember actually hearing about that before I saw the movie, because a mate of mine had gone to see it at the movies, and apparently in that bit, someone actually yelled out, "It's fucking Big Bird!" In the cinema, cracked the whole cinema up. So yeah, just every time I see that, I get reminded of that. So that just doesn't pack the punch for me. That's on me though, I guess.
And that's cooperation. Cooperation.
Mika's character at times is kind of like, I don't know, just like be a bit more intelligent about it. I know we always talk about this, but that kind of drives me up the wall a bit.
Hey, how the fuck do you know?
You are absolutely powerless.
That's not true at all.
There just isn't enough to fill it up. They could have done more. There was a few scenes that you could tell that they were just like when they go to the bedroom and then they have like, say, a minute of nothing happening. Like there's so many things like that where you could kind of tell it, like, are they just doing that just to get the runtime to what they need it to be? So yeah, a lot of filler, and the things that are filler aren't interesting. So I think they needed to add a bit more excitement to this movie, and that's a huge downfall for this movie, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Can you imagine if they edited this like the the meme where it's like the soap opera telenovelas where it's like 100 different angles of like the girl winding the window down or like falling backwards. They do that. It's just like different angles of Katie like getting up out of bed or like throwing Mika at the camera or whatever.
I presume we all watched the same ending where he gets thrown at the camera, yeah?
Yeah.
And okay, good. Because you were saying different endings. I didn't know if we might have got a different ending. Yeah. You guys getting an ending? Yeah. I just thought it got to night 21. Did we see 21 nights or did we miss nights? I don't even know.
No, they skipped specific nights. Yeah, so it was like night 1, night 3, night 5, etc., etc. It was never.
Yeah. So I think that's probably like the Achilles heel, like the issue with Paranormal Activity is it's just the same substance in each film. And so up to that point, sort of when you got to the flower on the ground, the footsteps, I was like, my heart rate, was raising. And then when it got to this point where she got dragged out of bed, I wasn't really that scared at that point. It just was kind of dumb. And it annoyed me that all the activity just happened off screen downstairs and it was just screaming. And then I'm like, ah. And then I knew what was coming. And then him getting thrown at the camera, I'm like, cool. And then her kind of doing that stupid, and then it ended. I was like, come on. Like, it was just, yeah, the ending was just, what do you call it? Like, lukewarm finish to it was like building up to a point and then it just dropped and yeah.
What are all those?
Oh, yeah, it's just your standard home security setup. Basic run-of-the-mill, no big deal, nothing too elaborate. Everybody has them.
This wasn't mentioned in the documentary, but Steven Spielberg allegedly convinced the filmmakers to change the original ending. And that original ending was Katie returns to the bedroom alone, covered in blood and holding a large kitchen knife. She sits on the floor against the bed and rocks back and forth. The next day, Katie's friend Amber leaves a concerned message at 2 p.m., visits the house at 9 p.m., discovers Mika's body downstairs and runs away in panic. Anyway, fast forward, 2 policemen enter the house, and then they find the possessed Katie with a knife. Katie returns to her normal state and asks about Mika. The attic door slams by itself, and one of the officers panics and shoots and kills her. The camera fades to black as the police officers continue searching the house for the source of the sound. And then there's all this like epilogue text being like, oh, the film's dedicated to Mika and Katie, etc. And that ending was only shown publicly at the Screamfest Film Festival in 2007, where it was first shown, etc.
She's got a weapon. Put the knife down. Put the knife down. Put the knife down.
But yeah, there's like other additional endings, like Katie comes back upstairs alone, like in the original ending. However, she closes and locks the bedroom door and slits her own throat. Like
that ending you said sounded great though.
I was just thinking that sounds all right to me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And if they didn't put the text at the end, I think that would have been fine, just having the officers come to the house. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder why Steven Spielberg asked them to change it. Maybe they just wanted that one last scare, which is Katie growling at the camera or whatever she does.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked more like a My Chemical Romance video. Sorry?
Blumhouse 101, that one last scare.
Ugh, I'm sick of Blumhouse.
Yeah, no. They're like the next Michael Bay of horror.
There were also 2 scrapped other alternate endings, but it says that they weren't really shown elsewhere. Maybe they weren't filmed, they were just written, but yeah, soon see.
That's weird.
Filming only took 10 days to complete, and it was all shot with a home digital camera, which that's surprising, because to me, this movie maybe it had a lot of upscaling or something. I mean, this is 2007/2009. Like, it must have been a really fucking great home digital camera.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Likewise, the entire movie was filmed in Oren Peli's own home. BP or Coop, one of you touched on this as well. The actors weren't given scripts, but were given guidelines on how to behave or what to discuss in their scenes, so it was ad-libbed. I think that helps. I didn't notice too many times where it was like, oh fuck, what do we have to say? Like, it wasn't amateur to me.
So is she really getting annoyed that he had the camera in her face all the time?
No, I think she just had to like act that out.
You and the camera.
I say we smash the cameras and blow the whole house up! That sounds like a smoking prize to me!
Oh god, this one's pathetic, and I'm gonna read it out. Steven Spielberg had to stop watching the film halfway through on a home screener as he was genuinely spooked by the experience. He completed watching it in daylight hours and loved it.
So
the one for a second.
The one thing that I was curious about was, I know that it was initially made on $15,000, is what like Wikipedia says, and then the post production says $215,000. I know that Paramount wanted the ending changed. So are we suggesting that the ending cost $200,000? Is that what it's implying?
Could be. I mean, I would assume that that's just like editing costs, all that kind of thing, because like given that it's on, home
Yeah.
kind of thing, it's, they may have, special effects, things like that could have sort of blown out.
Well, I wasn't sure if the 15,000 included all the special effects, and then I know that they weren't happy with the ending, and I'm like, if they spent $200,000 on that ending, useless. That's like probably even a worse investment than the 400 million for Exorcist.
Fuck this. I didn't know this, and this wasn't mentioned in the documentary either, but DreamWorks wanted to remake the movie with a much bigger budget and better known actors, rather than release the film as it was, and instead they would use the original Paranormal Activity as a DVD extra.
Looks like we're just a bunch of monkeys dancing for the cameras. And what do we get in return? Nothing!
At least monkeys get beat off by their owners once in a while.
All the crew had to wear black clothes at all times so that no coloured reflections would show up on the walls or wooden floors. All the special effects were practically done in camera, but then enhanced by the director Oren Peli on his personal computer.
Oh, hang on a sec.
What is that?
I don't know. I was trying to do something.
I don't know what to actually rate this movie. I am going to say 7 out of 10. I think that's a bit fair. I do think it's something that you should experience at least once, but I would recommend, turn all the lights off, watch it on a big screen TV, watch with a group of friends. That always makes it better. If you watch it by yourself in the daylight, you're not going to have the same effect. Meh. Coop, what's your score?
I'm going to give it 6 chicken footprints out of 10. Like I said, like the found footage idea wasn't new, but this had a huge impact in that regard, and sort of bringing that back, like we've discussed. I don't think any of us think it was necessarily a good change to the industry, but there is an importance to it. So I'll give it 6 out of 10.
Nice. And BP, are you going to demand it? What's your score?
I demand 6. I'll give 6.5 out of 10. I think it was a good entry, as we've all discussed. There's a couple stronger entries in the series, but unfortunately, this is already the start of a demise of a horrible franchise that just went to shit in the end. And I didn't mention it earlier, but I will say the movie that I think sparked the found footage is Quarantine. Yeah, Quarantine did a lot better.
Oh, don't worry about the camera, okay? Just pretend it's not even there. Okay.
And interestingly, if anyone is listening, or for us, Quarantine, when I looked it up, came out in October 2008. So I'm not sure if they knew about Paranormal Activity being, filmed, but I do obviously know they remade it because of Rec, the Spanish version.
Yep.
So that came out, and then Paranormal Activity came out, but Paranormal Activity sort of took that glory.
Absolutely.
Annoyingly, I think just because of the budget. Yeah, but Quarantine did such a good job, and so when people sort of say Paranormal Activity reignited this found footage, I'm sort of like, no, it was Quarantine, but not a lot of people know about. But definitely, we'll do Quarantine down the track, and I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorites.
Listen, you little wiseacre. I'm smart, you're dumb. I'm big, you're little. I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it.
What is your favorite Paranormal Activity movie in the franchise?
It's a toss-up for me between 2 and 4, probably 2. Because by 4, by that point, it was almost a bit too much. Like there was too much going on. It was laughable that the alarm wasn't being raised when shit was happening. Like particularly in number 4, that a few people get killed like halfway through the movie and then they're just gone. In number 2, I like that they played on that whole the parental fear and all that kind of thing. And so I reckon number 2 was probably the best version of what was trying to be achieved with this franchise. Yeah.
Nice. And BP, same question.
Maybe 2, or even the Marked ones. I didn't actually mind the Marked ones spin-off because they kind of went somewhere. They went to Mexico. But yeah, I remember I liked the Marked ones at the time, but by that period, that was the 5th entry, and it was kind of just the same thing. You knew the same recipe of what was going to happen, just in a different setting and a bit of a spin-off. But yeah, probably 2, because 2 was, they weren't sort of obviously trying to take advantage of profits here, and they still did a good job. But by 3, it was still just starting to get on that fine line of, okay, we've seen this twice now. So I think 2 at this point was the best entry.
Yeah. It's interesting. I went onto Reddit and I saw a lot of people actually voted for the third Paranormal Activity as their favorite. I get it. I get why people love that movie. I was also a fan, and I do recognize there were some really great, unique scares in it. I just think the trailer that was released before that movie let it down because I was expecting to see a house fire, and then that house fire didn't fucking happen. I'm like, what happened? Like, the trailer showed all these things and it wasn't in the movie. But likewise, I do think the marked ones is severely underrated.
Yeah.
You know, if it gets to a point where we do all the Paranormal Activity movies at some point, I will recommend the marked ones. But I also think it's a little, it's kind of like a mix of Scary Movie if they did Paranormal Activity properly, not like Scary Movie 5, which was shit, as we know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the comedy element to it. Likewise, I do like number 2. I just think, you know, maybe if number 2 was released first, then that would have been like, whoa, what is this movie? Whereas because it was a sequel, it just gets relegated to that sequel status, doesn't really get its own time to shine. Listeners, thanks for checking out our Paranormal Activity episode. We've also covered Saw X, we've also covered Talk to Me, 1 Hour Photo, you name it, we've done it. Check out our TikTok as well, at Complete Guide to Horror. And if you hated this episode,
Get over it.
I don't care what they say. I'm not about to pay nobody's way. 'Cause it's all about that dog in me. I wanna freaking morning and freaking evening, just like this. I need a rock that blood satisfy me, just for me. If you are the kind of man, 'cause I'm the kind of girl. I've got a freaky secret, everybody say, 'cause we don't give a damn about it. 'Cause I'll be a freak until the day, until the dawn. And we can all through the night till the early morn. Come on and I'll take you around the hood on a case to me. 'Cause we can anytime I take, so